finally here! Chapter 5 of Bendy and the Fetch Quest Machine! Chapter 5 of Bendy and the Stop Noticing Me Around Every Doggam Corner Machine! Chapter 5 of Bendy and the Ink Machine! This story, which began a year and a half ago, is finally over. Or is it? Bendy Chapter 5 brought with it many new questions and few answers, so I will fill in the gaps of everything we've been missing along this inky journey. What is Henry's fate? What happened to Joey? What is the ink? Is it alive? Does Bendy control it? Are we an ink person? Are we also a Bendy? Too many questions, if you ask me, but we're going to answer all of them! We all hoped Chapter 5 would tie a nice bow on these questions and this series as a whole, but I think we can all agree that nothing was completely explained during the final chapter. Instead, the Meatly has left it up to us to decipher this puzzle. So call me Sherlock Holmes because I'm about to solve the mystery of the ink studio with unparalleled and often annoying perceptive power and an alcohol problem. So join me as we uncover the true mysteries lurking beneath this ballpoint pen pool. Listen as we finally gain a true understanding to Henry, Joey, and the entire studio. This is the story of people lost to the ink, of monsters created from madness, of a creation far greater than we ever could have expected. This is the story of Bendy and the Ink Machine Chapter 5, the story you never knew. Now, I know many of you have a lot of questions. I took one look at the Bendy subreddit, and there's literally people capsing for answers. We'll get to it all in time. But first off, I want to give you a warning. If you don't want spoilers for Chapter 5, you should watch our playthrough on Twitch, link in the description, and then watch this video. Or play it yourself, and then watch this video. I know many of you come to videos because you don't want to buy the game, but you want to understand the story. So we're going to go through Chapter 5 and what happens, especially the ending, and how it relates to the story as a whole. If you don't want to be spoiled, this is your out. After this, there's no turning back. Let's begin. Chapter 5 begins just as we predicted, with Henry being held captive by Allison and Tom. We already knew this was the case from the recordings we covered in our previous videos. Tom and Allison don't know what to make of us. Actually, Tom's made up his mind. Come on, Tom, that was my bacon soup! They're worried because we're something they haven't ever seen. A human. Allison says,
"Down here, strangers aren't good things. How can we trust you? We don't even know what you are."
Now, before Chapter 5 was released, our reasoning for Allison and Tom holding us captive was that they saw us as a Bendy, another ink demon, but different from the evil Bendy. We would be the good Bendy to Joey's evil Bendy. However, we know from later on in Chapter 5 that we definitely aren't an ink person. I'll explain more when we get to that specific part. But be assured, Henry is not an ink person. He is human. So Allison saying, "We don't even know what you are," means that neither she nor Tom has ever seen a human before. Tom and Allison have been holding us captive for a while. We know that Henry has been trapped for multiple days, if not weeks, based on the previous Joey Drew Studios recordings, and considering the first few minutes of the chapter takes place over a series of days. Over this time, Allison seems to trust us more and more, enough that she finally lets us in on a secret, that by using a piece of glass you can see hidden writing on the walls. But there's more than that. Despite saying, "They call me Alice, but I'm no angel," she has a hidden halo over her head. So we're not looking at secret ink specifically here. We're looking at hidden signs, like the halo to show us that Allison is indeed our ally, and the writing on the wall next to her saying she will leave us for dead. This turns out to be true. Allison and Tom do leave us to be killed by the ink demon. Most people just continued on in the game, looking at the signs as they went, but this stopped me dead in my tracks. How did whoever or whatever is writing these notes know what was going to happen? Right after that, if we look around our room, we can see tons of hidden messages showing us where to go, how to get a weapon, to get out of our cell, and most importantly, a note on the ground saying that our drawings are beautiful. Henry says during his recordings between Chapter 4 and 5,
"Mostly been spending my days doodling, passing the time as best I can."
That means these doodles have only been here as long as we have. They weren't here before we were in the cell. We made them. So whoever or whatever is making these messages can not only know the future, but it seems like it's always around. It's everywhere and can write a message at any point. And in addition to that, this omnipotent being seems to be helping us. This is very interesting when you think about it in terms of what Henry has previously said in his recordings.
There's a secret hiding in the shadows. I just feel like I'm being watched. There's something at work here.
The thing, the person, the whatever that is writing these messages is exactly what Henry was describing. There is absolutely something hiding in the shadows, something watching, and it wants to help us. Hooray! So we make our way through the studio, or under the studio, or whatever, until we get to an ink river. Unsurprising, considering we've essentially seen this in the Chapter 5 reveal trailer, but now we have to use a barge to slowly make our way through the inky depths. And that's when, oh god! That's a giant hand! And you know what they say about big hands? Big death. Why won't this barge go any faster? It's an ink barge made specifically for ink! And yet it gets clogged every 10 seconds? You really embody the American-made Spirit barge, probably made by Chrysler. And so we continue onwards, slowly outrunning a giant hand while frequently stopping to smack the ever-loving ship tits out of the paddle wheel. I don't know if you can die during this part.
You gotta pull them out. Oh, okay.
Never mind. We make it to the other side where we're attacked by none other than Sammy. He's mad and swings that axe like a kid who just snorted 12 packs of Fun Dip and stuck the sticks up, well, you know where. This is an interesting mini-boss. We haven't seen Sammy since he got killed by Bendy back in Chapter 2. So why has he suddenly shown up? Despite having a Bendy mask on, he doesn't seem to worship the Ink Demon anymore. In fact, he says,
"Betrayed, abandoned. I trusted you. I gave you everything. And you left me to rot. Why?
Well, because you were being a dick, Sammy! You can't tie someone up, draw a pentagram under them, sacrifice them to a demon, and expect them to risk themselves to save you. Sheep, 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 it's time for sleep. You're the sheeple here, Sammy! Anyway, Sammy seems to have a spiritual awakening and no longer reveres Bendy as a god, which is good. However, he wants to kill us, which is bad. But we get saved by Tom, who finally trusts us enough to fight with us against the horde of ink peeps, kick bodacious ink booty, and finally be reunited with our friends, only to fall to a near inky demise. We recover, only to find a hidden message that says, it's inside the vault. Well, what is inside the vault? Our way out? A way to beat the Ink Demon? Well, why don't you help, more omnipotent being of wall drawings? Continuing on, we find a recording from Tom, which gives us a backstory as well as a first-hand experience of the Ink Demon being born. He says,
"One weird note. The first figure ever created was a failed attempt in the likeness of the character called Bendy. Since that time, no other attempts of this particular figure have emerged."
We've only seen one Bendy this entire time, the Ink Demon, and it's definitely deformed, not like Bendy should be. So by putting 2 and 2 together, we can surmise that this first attempt is the Bendy tracking us right now. As we are doing some pipe building fetch questing missions, the entire room goes all inky, meaning Bendy is near. Upon finishing the pipes, we open a tunnel leading to the aforementioned vault. Of course, this vault has been completely ripped open, and whatever you're looking for has already been taken. But by checking our surroundings, we can already tell what we're looking for. A tape. This vault is full of tapes, and we looked in a box with other tapes, only to be approached by Allison, who says,
Looks like whatever was here was taken long ago.
so we already know that whatever destroyed the vault, it was Bendy, took a tape that we need. In the next room, we run into Henry's old desk. Again. Didn't we run into this in Chapter 1 also? Also, how did it get down here? This doesn't make any sense! Yet. I believe I can explain all of it. And this desk thing right here might be the most essential clue to the explanation. But let's get to the end of the game first. Allison and Tom push you forward across a lake of ink. Henry says they have to wade across.
We'll have to wade across.
See? I told you! But the real reveal is what Allison says in response.
We can't. We're not like you, Henry. If we go in there, well, A drop of water in the ocean is rarely seen again.
AKA, Alice and Tom are made of ink. They can't wade across the ink or they'll disappear into the ink. But we can. This is what I was referring to earlier at the start of the chapter. This is legitimate proof that Henry is not an ink person. He can survive the ink. They can't. Bada bing, bada boom, Henry ain't no Bendy. He ain't even an ink dude. This leads us to a weird throne, which I can only assume is Bendy's. Sitting on this throne are two things: a tape recording of Joey, specifically addressing us, and a film reel labeled The End. This is what was in the vault. This is what the writings have been telling us to get since the very beginning of the chapter in our cell. This is what can kill Bendy. Of course, Bendy isn't exactly thrilled we've made it this far and decides to make some life changes. He totally skips leg day and metamorphosizes into an even scarier ink version of your mom that can now one-shot Henry. 'Cause she thick. All that momentum, you know. Henry slowly makes his way past the beast, beating him in multiple scenarios, essentially running in a circle back to the throne with the end tape. Upon throwing it into the projector, Bendy turns and sees the words "The End" on the screen and gets destroyed by a blinding light. Once the light finally disperses, we're no longer in the studio. We're at the front door of a rinky-dink apartment. It's definitely not kept up well, and as we explore the apartment, it becomes apparent that this isn't just a random home. It's Joey's. There's letters from Wally and Allison pinned on his wall, along with bankruptcy notes. But more importantly, on Joey's drawing table are storyboards of the entire game. Drawings of Evil Bendy, Evil Boris, and the Projectionist, all of them signed with a JD. Joey drew. And all of them have the title Bendy and the Ink Machine at the top of the page. If we continue into the kitchen, we're greeted by Joey, who's old and smelly. I'd assume. I mean, the dude hasn't done his dishes in weeks. Do you want ants? Because that's how you get ants, Joey. Joey attempts to get all philosophical with us. But the real kicker is that he says,
Henry, come visit the old workshop. There's something I need to show you.
And then we open what I can only assume is his front door, and we're back at the start of chapter 1. What? Said everyone and their mom. Your mom. Now, I can explain this, but first, after the initial credits, there's one more vital scene. A scene of Joey's place again, but from the opposite angle. And this way, we can see he has the ink machine in his other room as it zooms in on a picture of Bendy, Boris, and Alice. Signed, Henry Stein. And when the picture comes fully into frame, we hear,
"Tell me another one, Uncle Joey."
And the credits roll. Do you know what just happened, people? Because if not, that's totally understandable. It's not what I would call a cut and dry ending. Nope, this is some FNAF-inspired sassafrassing right here. So let's talk about what we just witnessed and what it means. There's multiple ways to dissect this ending, but there's only one real answer, the story you never knew answer. The truth behind Henry's journey through the studio is a time loop. Wait! Before you flip the table, there's multiple clues that back this up. For one, at the end of the game, Henry returns to the beginning of chapter 1, aka it loops. Pretty self-explanatory. But the other evidence comes from the looking glass we talked about earlier. After we finish the game, we're given a notification. We can now use the glass during the entire game, meaning there's hidden messages throughout all chapters, not just chapter 5. Trust me, the day chapter 5 came out, I played through all of it, twice. Thanks for being good at programming and making all my save files not work the meatly. There's hidden messages from the very beginning all the way through the end. But I specifically want to focus on the messages within our containment cell at the beginning of chapter 5. Look at what is happening on the wall here. This isn't just one person's thoughts. Or actually, that's poorly worded. It is one person's thoughts. Henry's. His writings over and over and over again throughout the multiple time loops, figuring out more and more what to do and helping himself along the way with maps and advice and even words of encouragement. This evidence is backed up by the very start of Chapter 1. If you continue your save file with the glass, as soon as you enter the studio, you'll see hidden writing on the wall. Tally marks upon tally marks upon tally marks, signifying Henry going through the studio time after time after time. Now, I 100% think this is what is happening, but if you think that's all that is happening, you're dead wrong. This time loop may explain one aspect of the game, but there's an entire separate part to it that not only confirms this idea, but completely changes the way we'll view the ending. This isn't a fantasy game, it is realistic, and I can prove it. The double Henry desks, the writings on the wall, the ending, the signed picture from Henry, all of these things fit together in one unique puzzle. But for that, you'll have to come back for a second part to this video, because there's just no way we could condense it down enough. So make sure to click that bell so you get a notification for the final reveal of Bendy and the Ink Machine. The entire ending, the entire game, everything explained in the next story. You never knew.